Super stoked you're here, and I'm super stoked to dig into some questions today. We're going to use them as a direction, but we may or may not answer them. Let's go. This is a fun one to start. At ZMBY26, what are some unethical tips for becoming better as a fighter? Okay, I like the way you phrase that. What are some unethical tips? This is actually a really fun one to start with. So, walk out into the forest and collect me a bucket of sportsmanship, right? Where is sportsmanship? What is it? Is it real? Sportsmanship is an agreement, an unwritten agreement, right? Sportsmanship is something that we have to trust that the other person believes in if we believe in it, right? I value honor and respect and sportsmanship and things like this in fighting. I do, but you don't have to, right? And if I'm competing with you, I have to take into account the fact that you may not believe what I believe. And this applies everywhere in life, right? This applies to everything. I would love to think that you will treat me the way I'd like to treat you. I would love to think that the world is fair. I would love to think that my boss is honest, any of these things. But they may not be, right? I'm trying to look at what books I've got here. 48 Laws of Power is a great book, Robert Greene. I resisted reading it for a long time because I'm like, I hate this politics crap. And then somewhere in there, Ryan Holiday was like, no, you have to read. If you're someone who doesn't like politics, you have to read this because these are the things they're doing. Whether you want to or not, that's real, right? And it's the same thing with sportsmanship or honor or respect or any of these things. If I believe that you have to behave a certain way, I'm not being very smart about it, right? Because you could cheat. Right? You could lie. You could deceive. Fighting at its root is deception, right? All warfare is rooted in deception. Some paraphrasing, but Sun Tzu. I mean, this is all warfare is deception. Your entire goal is to trick me. It may not be to trick me in a way that you or I find dirty, but it's to make me think that this punch is coming when this one's coming. It's to make me think that you're going to take me down and I do something and then you hit me. Like it is nonstop deception. You're trying to tell me lies. You're trying to deceive me. So yeah, like clean fighting, a dirty fight, or any of these things, these are all concepts. They're not real, right? They're not real. And I don't mean that in a you should break all the rules way. I mean that in you should understand he could break the rules, right? Now, when we get, and the question here on ethical tips for becoming better as a fighter, what's the context of our fighting? Are do you need to defend your family against somebody who's trying to hurt you? Well, then these unethical tips will be very useful, right? Attack the eyes, attack the groin, use a weapon. These things are bad in a sporting environment. But if someone's trying to hurt your family, this is going to be very important things. And that's what leads me to the answer that I like here. All the things that you're not allowed to do in a sporting environment, are all in play when you're trying to protect your family, or you're in an environment of armed conflict, or somebody's invading where you live, or something terrible is happening. You want to immediately examine all of the things you cannot do in fighting. I've trained with coaches who literally look at the things, just even say in karate combat or mixed martial arts or whatever. They look at what rule sets, certain things are allowed that are not allowed, say, in wrestling. So a wrestling coach, there's certain things where you are not able to manipulate the nose or facial features. But in fighting, it's a looser environment. Well, that coach immediately wants to examine those things that you don't do in wrestling and start to do them in a fighting environment, right? Unethical tips. I mean, this is such a great question because to really examine it is to take away our own opinion of these things. And this is a tangent, but if you ever watch me, I love a fucking good tangent, right? Our opinion actually blurs and soils reality, right? Our opinion is often the filter through which we look at the real world. My opinion of how you should behave has nothing to do with how you might behave, right? So all of these things, and we've seen it a lot over the last few years, even the things that certain fighters have said. So Conor McGregor, if you look back sort of historically as these things come up, he actually was a real, would push the line on these things, then they would become normalized. I don't think anybody, not in any large way, ever showed footage of training, of sparring. It was just not done. It's like, that is not done. Conor McGregor said, one, why not? And two, he said, well, if it's not done, that means probably very powerful, right? In comedy, for many years, they said, don't swear, it's lazy. And that's true, it was lazy. But because no one swore for 10 years, suddenly swearing was this really provocative thing because you were in an environment and people would look down on you for doing it. But it was powerful because it was not done, right? Not showing training footage. When he was training with Paulie, my friend Paulie Malignaggi, when he was training with Paulie, he leaked that footage. That was never done. 3 weeks later, TJ Dillashaw was fighting Cody Garbrandt. Garbrandt leaked that stuff. Suddenly it's done. Why wasn't it done? We just sort of all frowned on it, to which Conor McGregor, then Cody Garbrandt, now it's done all the time. They were like, well, why? I can use this as a tool. Now, that's a level of unethical in that environment. And then people were like, don't talk about my family. Now, I don't think, I would never speak about that because I wouldn't want that done to me. But if you know that about me, you should probably say some dirty shit about my family, especially if it would provoke me. Right? If it would make me uncomfortable. I remember when I was fighting, I caught wind that a guy was going to walk out to one of the songs that I played in my band. I was mad. He never did it in the end. But what a great idea. What a great idea. Now, he didn't know it would make me mad, but once he found out it made me mad, he could have done it or even not done it. But if it was in my mind, that was actually a really good idea. Right? I don't like it. I found it irritating at the time. Now I wouldn't care. I would laugh. Now I'd be like, oh, that's cool. I wrote those songs like in 2001. That guy's going to walk out to it. Wow. But if you can provoke me, and I mean, Art of War, I don't actually have a copy here because I listen to it on my phone all the time. But if your enemy is of choleric temper, seek to irritate him, right? Talking about Khabib's wife or, his family. Again, I use Conor McGregor as an example because he would push these boundaries as a tool. It was conscious, it was intentional, it was by design. And what is the downside? Well, public disapproval. Well, what does that do? The public disapproves of you. That doesn't harm you. And in fact, it can be very helpful because it drives your engagement. And now you're making more money because people dislike you, right? So there was no negative to other than how you feel about yourself. But if you look at the whole thing as a game and you, for whatever reason, but these things are all there and these edges get pushed. Again, like I'm not talking about what I personally like, and you may agree with me that you also don't like these things, but they're real and they're there. And my opponent may do them. I remember when Holly Holm was fighting someone, I think it was Jermaine Durandamy, and she hit her after the bell a couple of times and Holly got upset. But Jermaine, and I could be wrong, could be a different fight. But the opponent was not didn't lose anything for doing it. Now, I don't like that. Holly didn't like it, and you may not like it. But in retrospect, it was a great idea because nothing negative happened to her except for public disapproval, which I personally would not like. But it actually can help your audience. So when somebody hits you after the bell or does something dirty to you, you cannot control that person or that happened. All you can control is your reaction to it. They will be dirty. And this is true in fighting, and this is true in life, and this is true in business. This is true when you're, having a relationship and maybe there will be people seeking your girlfriend or boyfriend. There will be people, someone will slide into your wife's DMs. I think Conor did that one too, to Poirier, right? These are all things outside of the realm of the acceptable, which is why they were done. They were done to win. And they were done because you might get upset about it. These things will happen in life. Your job is to know that they could happen and not be upset by them. That's the goal of the martial artist and the successful business person and the happy human, is understand that the world is unfair. The world is dirty. There are people that are going to do things that will shock us. We're going to be okay with it. We're not going to give them the reaction they seek. That's what we can control. That's the part we can control. So unethical tips for becoming better as a fighter, or what are some tips for becoming a less ethical fighter? They're all there. You know what they are. You don't need any tips. Be dirty. Lie, cheat, steal. You can do all that. This is your life. I don't choose to do that. And at different times. So I sung in a rock band for many years. When I see Colby Covington do the shtick he does, which is pretty tired and repetitive and cartoonish, and it's not really working that well. It really isn't. Like, it doesn't really do anything now. It's a game. Like, and he's stuck in it. He thinks he's stuck in it. He could leave it at any time. He could leave it at any time. And he would be better for it. You look at that and think, oh, well, he made money and you lost all your friends and you have to have security around all the time. And you were allegedly assaulted outside, I say allegedly, I think it was, the thing has been solved, but I don't want anyways, allegedly assaulted. When somebody threw a boomerang at you on camera, when your friends all left, you got kicked out of a gym, your life ain't better. I sung in a rock band and I pushed the lines of talking shit about other bands at a time. I wasn't we didn't have as good a songs as them, or maybe subjectively, maybe we did, but we weren't as big as them. And I used those tools as a tool to promote my band. And I thought it's just pro wrestling and they understand I'm just talking. They didn't. They thought I was a jerk, and they were right. And the people who think Colby Covington's a jerk are right. We are what we do. Just because you say something bad, and some of those bands are were my friends then and are now, and some were my friends then and are not now because they let it go that Robin's an asshole. And that was 20 years ago. And these things will affect you. And so you learn in your life and you become who you're going to become, and hopefully you learn from them and become a better person when you do things that are outside of the realm of what you're comfortable with and who you'd like to be. But Colby Covington, I talk to people that are at ATT and they're like, hey, he can say awful things in public about people and then be like, why don't they get it? They're just kidding. But it isn't just kidding. You're doing something bad. You're being a bad person. You're being a rude person in a realm of people. And there is a lot of Colby Covington kids who watch that and they act that way. And they think it's good. It's not good. They're not going to be happier people for being a troll. You're not going to have a better life being a troll. There may be some short-term gains of growth or attention, but it's negative attention, But it's your life. You can do things however you want to do it. You can express your path however you want to express it. I'm here to tell you that I believe that how you treat other people affects your own quality of life. But you get to do you. At I'm Drew WHBU. Give your 25-year-old self some advice you needed to hear. I love this this question. I see it in different environments around. It's a good one, because sometimes people who write this are in their 20s. They're like, oh man, I don't know. Man, there's so many things I would tell myself at 25. And some of them I'd like to tell Ryan Garcia, who's 25. It's going to be okay, right? Like, you tell your I would go back and tell my 25-year-old self, everything is going to be okay. And it really will. And there was a comedian, man, comedians can say some really intelligent things. So a comedian the other day who said, everything's going to be all right. And if it isn't, you're going to do better to live like it is. And then when it isn't, deal with it then. Which is really simple, but really good advice. I think it was a Stoic philosopher who said, he who suffers before it is necessary suffers more than is necessary. I mean, that makes a lot of sense, right? Like when it's time, when something goes bad, we're going to deal with it then. Every ounce of energy spent worrying, being anxious about the future actually harms the present too. But and it's such an interesting one because if I traveled back in time and talked to my 25-year-old self, I would just never believe how good my life is. And I'm very grateful to be able to say that. I'm very, very grateful to be able to say that. And I'm very shocked to be able to say that. I'm very I feel very lucky to be able to say that. But life is really good. I would probably warn myself about some of the dangers of, drugs and like many of these things. I would have probably said, you're going to stick with some, it's okay to quit things. That's an interesting one I would tell myself. I think I stayed in a rock band a few years too long, where all the signs were there that it's like, you've done what you were going to do with this. It's time to learn and move on. But had I done that, my daughter wouldn't exist today. You don't want to change anything when your life is good. Like, could it be better? Of course. I mean, what is better, right? Like, I'm happy and I'm healthy and I have a great family and I get to do what I love. I mean, what more could you ever ask for? But I mentioned Ryan Garcia because I look at Ryan Garcia right now and I think, oh my God, it must be hard to be a 25-year-old. Think of this. If I said to you, if I said to Ryan Garcia at 15, you're going to be 25, you're going to be rich, you're going to be famous, and you're going to be probably quite miserable. I think he's probably miserable whether he knows it or not. So when you look at child stars of any era, there were some in the 70s and the 80s, and a lot of things don't go really great for kids who became stars very young. And that goes right through to Justin Bieber. I hope Justin's doing very well today. I don't know. And the fact that I don't know, it could be a very good sign. The fact that we don't hear a lot about Justin Bieber right at this minute could be a very good sign. But yeah, being a child star kind of is a bit heavy. And Ryan Garcia became famous hitting double end bags. Was it double end or whatever you call that one on a stick? What's that one called again? Whatever it is. Ryan Garcia became very viral famous as a teenager, training in his garage with a springy bag doing tricks on it. And I think so addiction ends up being something that you see happening with a lot of child stars. And there's evidence that Ryan has maybe some substances that are a challenge in his life. That we don't know that. I don't know that, that's for sure. Maybe somebody else does, but I definitely don't. But I do see weird modern signs of social media addiction. Shit's going really bad and he has to get online and make a statement about the thing, and then the other thing changes, then he gets suspended and makes another statement about it. And you see all these people, like many of them older than him, dude, just get off the internet. Just get off the internet. I know the question was about what advice would I give my 25-year-old self, but if I could give Ryan Garcia some advice, get off the internet. Go for a walk every day. Just breathe. We are not supposed to be hardwired into the entire communication system of an entire planet. We're not supposed to be able to consume how other people observe us, and we're not supposed to be able to respond in real time to it. We're using primitive parts of our brain that aren't even really, looking at the repercussions of the things we say and do. That's not how our brains have ever been, interacting with the world. It's all new. And it appears to me and I'm certainly not an expert, but my concern, I look and I go, this guy's, whatever addiction behavior he has going on in his life, the internet is a big one of them. So you just hope Ryan Garcia, so it's something really likable. I find there to be something really likable about a 25-year-old who's super skilled and handsome, talented and likable and stuff. And it's sad to see him seem to be getting suspended from things. And I get pushing the envelope, coming in too heavy on purpose as a tool to win fights. He didn't pioneer that. That's been done. But yeah, the pressure being that guy right now, when you post anything and the whole world sees it in whatever sort of uncomfortable state you're in, that's a scary place to be. And it's a very modern place to be. And I really hope Ryan Garcia is okay. Yeah, but if I were to give my 25-year-old self some advice, it'd be slow down, be patient. The world, your life can be better in its 30s than it was in its 20s. And your life can be better in your 40s than it was in your 30s. And I would have never believed this, but your life can absolutely be better in your 50s than it was in your 40s. And I would tell myself that, because then you relax and let a lot of life is about learning and compiling skills and building knowledge and life experience. And you can't rush that stuff. You just gotta know that it's all gonna be okay if you just try to do the best thing in front of you right now. Okay, at Dawson Hool. What are some of the biggest changes you've noticed about yourself since becoming a father? Wow. I'm like a completely different person, but it's been 2.5 years. I don't know what the biggest changes are. I certainly see the world differently. I certainly see, she's growing. Every parent will tell you this, but it's like happening so fast. So unbelievably fast. And, I'm an older dad. So suddenly I'm seeing like that my life is shorter. What's left of it is short. It's got to be as healthy as I can make it. It's got to be as present as I can make it. Like, it's giving me a different type of urgency, but like not a hurry up and do things urgency, like a, hey, do it, be here, and cherish all of this kind of thing. But I also people will tell you, and of course, getting married or having a child or a big change in career or change in a place where you live, these are very large life changes. And people will tell you that you will change when they happen. The one part that I actually find really interesting, I'm trying to hold on to it and be able to figure out how I can share this, is actually the change won't just happen. It's actually work. You actually have to do what I loosely call emotional labor to actually change, because we are also resistant to change. Like, you'll become more calmer or more present, or you'll try to slow down, whatever the things are. That just doesn't happen. You just don't go from however you're living and then suddenly you move to a different city, or you have a child, or you get married and suddenly everything changes. It's work. Change is effort. Like, it's accepting things, but it's also like examining yourself, looking at yourself. How and why am I behaving this way? Could I do it different? What would it take for me to do it different? Could I see it different? It's work. Change, growth, evolution. Some of it happens. Sometimes it's a function of the other things you're doing. Trying to get a little healthier, trying to read a little more, whatever, spending more time in nature, whatever you're doing. Sometimes the change is a consequence or an outcome of that. Sometimes the change is like you're looking at yourself and go, what am I doing? Do I like it? How do I need to be different to be a better dad? How do I need to be different to be better at my job? What am I doing that is limiting me from the things that I want? Like, you got to look at it and then see it and be honest about it and then do some stuff. So the biggest changes actually took effort. And I didn't realize that. When people are like, oh man, when you're a father, everything's going to change. I'm like, now I know that was true. What they left out is, and it'll require a lot of effort on your part to accept that change, or facilitate that change, or allow that change, or cause that change. It's like, oh wow, I don't tell you that stuff. But now I'm trying my best to tell you that stuff. But once they do tell you that stuff, you're like, okay, it's better to know it than to not know it and go, I don't know what's going on. I'm not changing at all. It's like, okay, well, you got to do some stuff different. You got to think different. You got to change your perspective. You got to slow the fuck down, or speed up. Maybe you're too slow. Like, whatever it is, you got to make some changes. But there's definitely, I see the world differently. I see the priorities change, and the purpose changes. I think I've maybe done 7 or 8 or 9 of these longer form YouTube videos, plus maybe 4, 5, 6 live ones in the last 3 months. They've all been like really like, if I go back, I haven't done this, but if I go back, or if you go and look at what I did, what I might have talked about in this environment 4 years ago or 5 years ago when I first started this YouTube channel, I'd probably see nothing in common. Like, I mean, I'm still sort of a weird cat that likes to go down rabbit holes and wax philosophical, but my whole perspective is different. And I think I will do that at some point, although I think I'll find it uncomfortable and I'll be like, oh God, I can't believe I did that. And that's normal. And that's a good thing. You want to look back at your previous work and look at it and see it as rudimentary or primitive or something. That's a good thing. I'd like to look at this and the work I'm doing on my socials and the work I do for my partners and stuff. I'd like to look back in 3 years and go, oh my God, I'm hoping I could grow so much that this will all look primitive. But yeah, I'm a very, very different person, and I like it. The reason I mentioned talking on YouTube is because I've noticed in those 12 or 13 things with the lives and whatever, the last ones, it's all very, I'm hoping to share something useful. I'm hoping, doesn't mean I do, I try. But I think that's got something to do with my daughter. That's definitely got something to do. I haven't thought of this once till this moment, but it's like, wow, what if she watches these one day? Never crossed my mind. It's wild, eh? Never crossed my mind. Never did. What if she watches one of these one day? Will I be proud of these last 12 or 13 or 14 that I've done? And yeah, I will, because I'm trying to say or do something that might have some value. Whether or not it does, 800 people watch it or 8,000 is irrelevant. And I like that. I feel good about that. A lot of changes, and change requires effort, and that's okay. Just understand that it does and do it. We move on. At Eric T181, would you say that you were a philosopher drawn to the combative arts or a martial artist who was led to philosophy through the arts? He points out quite rightly, it's always a blend of both, but usually one is more of a driving force when starting. I like his point, whether if you look at sort of, you're a gardener and you start to look philosophically at the world, or you're an astronomer and then you have a scientific view of the world. These things all are all one, right? I was always curious, and I really encourage curiosity. I encourage people to follow their curiosity. I'm well aware of what my daughter's curious about, and I'm always curious. And I'm looking for trying to explain things while also understanding whatever explanation I can come up with will be the best one possible, but in 10 years it will be wrong or rudimentary or basic or I'll know more. And so whatever I come up with is actually let's not fight about it. Let's not die on that hill. I don't believe that anything that I know is worth defending very much. And I certainly don't want to fight with you over your beliefs at all. I think that it'll probably rear up again when I'm tired or weak, through whatever reasons, and things happen in our day-to-day lives. But that if 1 + 1 is 3, I'm just gonna go with that. Like, I'm pretty sure it's 2, but I don't need to convince you of that. Also, it could be 1 + 1 = 2,000 in 100 years. So what's the difference, right? Why fight over what we believe now, knowing that it's fundamentally going to be different if we're so lucky to live 50 years or 100 years or 1,000? Doesn't make any sense. But martial arts for me, really, it's the last 10, 15 years of my life that I've had the deep curiosity in seeing the world through the lens, seeing martial arts as an analogy for life itself, right? And that's not new. I'm not some rare, like people who are blacksmiths view the world through bending steel and heating metal and hard work and the folding, whatever it is, you to study anything deeply for large periods of your life, you hope brings you to a state of being able to see the world in it and see it in the world. And so to me, martial arts was very much about fighting. Martial arts was very much about punching and kicking, and then it became about combat, then it became about learning, and then it became about process, then it became about growth. And in the last 10 or 15 years, sort of looking philosophically at the world, I think comes with age. I think there is no substitute for life experience. And if I tried to there was a question about my 25-year-old self. If I tried to tell my 25-year-old self there is no substitute for life experience, I just wouldn't have believed it, right? I would have been overly sure that at 25 I knew what I knew, and I knew it and it was correct. And it wasn't. And And what I know now, what I'm sure I know now, will not be correct if I'm around in 40 years. And I think that's really important. And I think this, my sort of desire to peel layers and look at the world through fighting, I think is this chapter. I like it. I'm a happier person understanding the world through these lenses, and purposefully not consuming it through certain other lenses. However you look at the world, the lens itself, the perspective itself, is part of the whole machine. If you see the world through Facebook, or you see the world through CNN or MSNBC or Fox News or whichever website or whatever, the lens is part of the shaping of your seeing of the world. So look at it through whatever way you choose, but be conscious about choosing it. And for me, it is the things that we learn, not just martial arts, but any type of learning and growth and change and self-study and desire to improve and trying to be your authentic self, whatever that is. It'll take you a long time to figure out what that is, and it'll never be fully figured out. You'll never be fully yourself, just being yourself. That sounds crazy, but it's true. It's true. It's too much of the world shaping it and bumping it and, shaving off the edges and stuff. Too much of the world is doing that. So you can never fully be your authentic self, but try. Just the trying is more than a lot. More than a very large percentage of the world is doing. It's not their fault. It's just the world is shaping them more than they're shaping it. But I don't know. I'm very thankful. I'm in a place that I'm really kind of enjoying this trip right now. Let's wrap on this one. At Labby Gillian, what are the 3 most important things for a martial artist to be a successful one? So we could say 5 or 3 or 1 or whatever. So I'm not going to come up with 3 specifically, because the confines of that, sometimes giving yourself parameters, 3 can be good. And then sometimes it can be limiting, especially when you're just kind of trying to think as dimensionally as possible. A lot of these sort of things we learn in mechanisms, watch television or the internet or whatever. They say, who are your top 3, whatever, who's the greatest, what are the rankings? It's not a bad thing. This is just how, we get tipped towards certain things. And 3 just might be your favorite number. But I'm going to look at what are some of the most important things for martial artists to be a successful one. But I'm also going to look, what is a successful one? What is a successful martial artist? What is a successful podcaster? What is a successful, creator? What's a successful coffee company? What's a successful husband or dad? What is a successful anything? That, I think, for me, is actually a much more pertinent question than what's important things to be. We got to figure out what that is. And I think that's the reason I like this one. I like to end on something, motivating or inspiring if possible. And I think there's something really, really here about what are we trying to do? What are any of us trying to do? What's a martial artist trying to accomplish? What is a gardener trying to do? What's a dad trying to do? What's a neighbor trying to do? What's a businessman trying to do? What the fuck are any of us trying to do? And I think we're trying to. You're born here. This is birth, and this is death, and this is it. Right? That's it. Now there may be something else, but this is all we know about for sure. And our beliefs and the things that we've learned, and whatever family we were born into, they may have passed some belief that came before that there is something else. There may be, but this is what we know. It's what we can see. This is what we can experience right now. This. Birth, death, space in between. What are we trying to do with that thing, right? And it's a pretty heavy question for some guy in Stratford, Ontario, on a YouTube channel that talks about martial arts and philosophy and stuff to look at. But I think what we can do is try to be the most we can be. What are the things that we were, what are our potentialities? What are we capable of? What might we do? What could we do if we did the best we could do all the time? Could we create something? Could we cure a disease? Could we change the world in some meaningful way? Could we have a kid or 8 kids? Can we build a business? Like, I don't think that it is to have the biggest number in my iPad on a banking app. I don't think it's that. For some people, that is how that's the scoreboard. I don't think it is. I don't know what it is, but you're trying to do it as best as possible, whatever it is. And the living is the thing, I think the thing that we can do, some of the things we can accomplish most to figure out what a successful life could possibly look like is waste less time. And this is a Bruce Lee quote. I'll give you the exact quote. Time is what life is made of, but Bruce Lee on time. If you love life, don't waste time, for time is what life is made of. Right? What if you fucking die next month? Right? Is what you're doing today going to be what you would choose to do if you were going to die next month? I'm not trying to be morbid, but if you behave that way, do the thing you're most inclined to do, what you'd love to do right now. Of course, we got to pay our bills, and of course, we got to do all these things to make sure that next week and next month, if we have to plant crops, metaphorically speaking. Some people do plant crops, but metaphorically, we have to plant crops. But what else can you do? Create something. I think we're here to create. I think we're all artists. I think that's why the world, more than ever, not most people, a very large percentage of humans are making things and putting them on the internet, whether that's their thoughts, their ideas, their opinions, their tweets, whatever. Because I think that's fundamentally, we're trying to express ourselves. We're living in a world, an unforgiving, sometimes scary world. And we just want to express ourselves. We want to go out and express ourselves as best as possible. And we want to try to be as healthy as we can, which you see a lot these days. You see people looking and going, wait a second, am I being as healthy as I can? Because that's going to give you more time, and it's going to make your time better. It's going to make your moments better. So can we be a little healthier? Can we be a little kinder? Can we encourage other people? Can we add something to the conversation that is making the conversation better? Can we, rather than incite anger and conflict, can we can we bring it down a little bit? Can we calm other people? Can we make them happy? Can we make ourselves happy? Can we make our families happy? And happiness isn't, I talked about this the last time we sat on YouTube. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be upset. It's normal. Don't hide them. It's okay to be angry. But you don't want to live in a world of anger, conflict, and rage, right? We want to, and other people are sometimes trapped there because the world around them is very unforgiving and provocative, and so can we make them feel better? These are good purposes, but what we're doing here is literally living, and we're living to try to do the very best we can, with the short time that we have. And even if you live till 91 years old, that's pretty short, right? It's not very much time. You don't have a lot of time, so do something good with it. Be kind. And I like to end with this often. And I say it to my friends, and I say it when just be kind to somebody today. Just do it. Just literally, when you get off this thing, the next person you see, encourage them, or be nice to them, or smile as you walk down. Because really, it's going to make a fucking difference. It really, really does. And you'll feel better. Get healthier. Get some more rest. Be kind to people. Do some reading. Learn something, create something, and you don't have to be the best painter, the best musician. Just make something, write something, Go out and live your life. Lots of love. Enjoy the hostilities, my friends.